delay. I'm going to talk about dividing React components, do's and don'ts. So, who am I? I'm the CTO and Vice President of UX Dream. Previously, I was using AngularJS, but for a year now, and my whole company are using React. If you want to ask me some questions or write me a joke or something, here's my email. So, what's my agenda here? I want to talk about something I call powerful components. Then I'll jump into the topic of smart and dumb components. A little bit about using this PropsChildren. I have two cases which could tell you how dividing components can benefit us in our applications, and some coding thought about self-constraining ourselves when writing the code. So, we talk that React is a very powerful library. But what does it mean, powerful? React's power really comes from very simple concepts. Concepts like lifecycle methods. You just read about those lifecycle methods and you instantly knew, yeah, I know how to use that. There's virtual DOM. Well, a virtual DOM is a silent guardian. I believe that there are people writing in React that doesn't even know what virtual DOM is. It's that cool. And the last part, component composition. React gives us component composition, and that's something that I want to talk about in this presentation, because, well, lifecycle methods and virtual DOM are very good, but they're just given to us. And component composition is where the programmer is the master. So we can write in React powerful components, but what is a powerful component? A powerful component is a component that is testable. A powerful component is a component that's responsible for very little. Think for a moment about that. When you have a component which dances, launches a rocket, makes sushi and 10 other things, you really don't know how to start editing this component because, well, you may break things. Yeah, and if you edit a component which has so many responsibilities, you just cry inside. You don't want to do that. So little responsibility is the key, and a powerful component should be small. For me, the third thing is the most important because, well, if you have a small component, it almost every time is testable. If you have a small component, well, you have not many lines of code, so it's responsible for very little. But, well, with great power comes great responsibility. And, well, I think every one of us been there. You're making a new project. You're happy, wow, we can use this new awesome technology. But, well, when time goes on and goes on and goes on, when you maintain this application, well, there's a bug, a leak. And so you patch the leak, or at least try. When you patch the leak, there's another leak. And you try to patch it again. The process iterates over and over and over till the time that you get disgust of yourself and you think, why did I even start this project? So, what could we do to prevent this from happening? Well, we have a saying in the React community, everybody knows that shared mutable state is the root of all evil. So we should compose our components to, well, not have a shared mutable state. How could we do that? Well, the first idea, the idea is not mine, it's something the community already uses. It's a division to a smart and dumb components. Well, what's a dumb component? A dumb component is a component that doesn't know about your application data organization. How many people know Flux, Redux, Reflux? Yeah, there's quite a few of you. So dumb components doesn't know that our application uses this. It's heavily reusable, so you can put just this component everywhere in your application and it shouldn't break. The next thing, dumb component has its own styles. I'll talk about it in a minute when I'll talk about smart components. And dumb components should communicate with the outside world only using props and callbacks. So what about smart components? Some smart components have some understanding about the application data management, data flow. So if you have Flux, a smart component is a place when you should do something with your Flux. It shouldn't have its own styles. Why? Well, when I talked about as little responsibility as it should, then we already have a component that manages the data in our application. So it would be wise to put the presentation to a dumb component, just give the dumb component some data, and just use it in a smart component so that the smart component doesn't represent something itself, doesn't use styles itself. Okay, so a diagram to show it a little better. So we have a big smart component that communicates with the outside world via stores and dispatching the actions. Stores is something from Flux. You just read some, well, we could say global data. And when something happens in a smart component, we just we dispatch a new action. And this smart component, inside of it, can have a or more dumb components, so that when the smart component wants to give some data to the dumb one, we just send some data via props. And when the dumb component does something, it just callbacks with some data to the smart component. What we have here? We have here one simple thing, that the state of the application is really only managed by the smart component, because we only give the dumb component a fraction of the state which it needs, but it cannot edit the state. It only reads the state. And why would we want to do that? Well, the idea is that we can have a lot of dumb components, but not so many smart components. So that when some really heavy shit goes on with your application, many bugs, then you just look on the smart components. I think it's right here or right here. Yeah. But we can have many dumb components, and we can compose as many views as we want to. So, an example. Well, just let's imagine we're making Facebook, but for cats. And this Facebook for cats cannot have something like a like, because, you know, Facebook would sue our asses, so we'll have a meow. So, first thing is to make a user info. It's just a small example. I don't write everything we need to make a component, just the necessary stuff. So we have a small component that just shows us the image of the user and the user's name and surname. Here is just username. And when we click on the image, well, something happens. We don't know what, because we have a dumb component which just executes some callback. That's it. Well, it could look something like that. Adorable kitten, yeah. And now, when we need to make a smart component so that we can make some action. So the smart component just wraps the dumb one and feeds it with some data. And when we click on the image, we want to meow this cat. So what's a meow? A meow could be, in Flux terms, just an action to be dispatched. So when we click on the cat, we will have a meow. Okay. So basically, smart and dumb components. Dumb component doesn't communicate in other way than props and callbacks. Does have its own styles and is reusable. And smart component doesn't have or shouldn't have its own styles. Can wrap some other components inside of it, some dumb components inside of it, and communicate with the outside world via Flux and actions. Okay, that's one thing, smart and dumb components. But what else can we do to achieve a better code, a better division of components? Well, there is one thing in React, this PropsChildren, which, well, surprisingly, not many people use in occasions when it could be used. Well, if some of you doesn't know what PropsChildren is, well, you can make a component which will have some component inside of it, but when you are writing this component, you do not know what will be inside it. So this little example, you have this PropsChildren inside a side element, so that in the future you could use something like this. And this PropsChildren is, well, awesome because it allows us to make very, very little unit tests. Does anyone doesn't know what a unit test is? Okay, everybody does know what a unit test is. So you don't have to test a really big bunch of code to check if some little thing is where it should be. You just test the minimum necessity. And I talk about this very simple thing, very obvious thing, because, well, I've seen that people, well, just don't use it as much as they could use it. So I have two cases which can show us when division does something for us. The first case, you don't really need to know, because I'll show you a bunch of code right now. You don't really need to read this code, you just need to feel it. So let's go. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so when you remembered when I talked about crying, I cried when I read this code. Really? Oh, I cried. And this code has some problems in it. Basically, this code is a slider, but, well, this code is quite big. It's only one component. I've seen components which are 5 times bigger than that, so it's not the worst sin. The worst sin is that it has mixed responsibilities. So what does this component do? It plays Vimeo videos. It plays YouTube videos. It resizes the video and manages the aspect ratio of the videos. You shouldn't see that. Okay. It shows a slideshow. It deals with asynchronous loads of those videos. And the most important part, it tries to keep everything sane. Well, it fails miserably. Well, of course, there's some repetitive code inside of it. The problem here is that in those few hundred lines of code, we have so many things that when I seen this code and I had to make some changes, well, I didn't know what to do for a couple of minutes, because I was just sitting and... So what could we do? What component division could do for us here? to help us? Well, I think the answer is obvious. Well, we have already a list what this component does. So we can make new components which do just one thing. So, separate the hell out of this component. We can have a YouTube player, which is just single component. We can have a Vimeo player, which also is just a single component. But we could also have a video player. Does anybody knows why a video player, a YouTube player, and a Vimeo player is a separate component? Any ideas?
Video player. Because of the dumb and smart components?
Excuse me?
Because of the dumb and smart components?
Not exactly. Well, all of these components will be dumb. But we need to play both YouTube and Vimeo players in the slideshow. So a video player will be just a component which will have also one responsibility: choose if we should play a YouTube video or a Vimeo video based on the source which will have. So then we have a slider and a slide. So the same thing. A slider will have a responsibility to view one slide from a set of slides, and a slide will have a responsibility to just make sure that everything renders properly. So, for example, we could make some code like this and use it like this. Well, I think that usage of this will be much more cleaner than what we saw, well, before. Okay, so that was the first case, and we have a second case. No content in here, but I want to talk here. Well, we had a situation in our company that we needed to give the client an unimitable toggle on content. Well, you knew jQuery, right? So it had something like a toggle when you just yeah. So it's not that easy in clean CSS. You need to do some stuff with max height. You need to know what's the max height of your component. So, well, it's not that good of a solution when you think, well, we need something fast, yes? Because, well, we could do this with jQuery. We could just embed a jQuery in React, and, well, we're done. But the quality of code will be, and we don't want that. But we need to give our client something fast. So, component division to the rescue. We could make a simple accordion component, a dumb component, which responsibility is to, well, toggle something. And even this version, which have a toggle on inside the component, is not that good, because we could make an accordion which will just react on the props change. Okay, we have jQuery still in the code, but we've got it in only one place. The contract of the accordion with the rest of the application won't change when we change the insides of this accordion, so everything's happy. Everyone's happy. The client has its code released quickly, and we can change the code the next day to, well, make this code jQuery free. So, well, that's it when it comes to component division. But I would like to add one more thing. Don't constrain yourself too much when it comes to code. Well, when we are using Flux, Redux, or, well, any other similar thing, we want to fit our code into an action, a store, or a React view. Well, there's not always we need to do that. For example, if you have an easing animation library, you could just make another code, another object, which isn't an action, which isn't a store, which isn't a view. It will be a small library, and you just will use it in those, for example, in a view. Well, we all need to remember that in the end of the day, the programmer is the master of his code, and every set of rules can be broken if there's just a good justification. Thank you.